I saw a video that you hosted like an underground Tokyo car show for like the auto salon, and Larry Chen was in the video. There's a bunch of other photographers in there, and they were like, "Oh my god, this is so crazy! Like running around, they can't breathe, trying to take as many photos as they can." Like meets like that, just something that just occurs on a weekly thing, or was that just because it was just smaller meets because there was a massive event behind it?
Yeah, so basically that's it. It was
Yeah.
actually a good friend of mine, Japanese guy that's been in the car scene forever. He's got a really cool ER34.
Yeah.
He knew, of course, that Tokyo Salon was going to be open for the first time after
Mm.
COVID, and literally half the world would be in Tokyo for the weekend. And he decided to kind of do a very curated type of event. So, the location was hidden. It
Mm.
was invitation only. And a few hours before the event was supposed to happen, he released where it would be occurring. And it turned out to be one of the coolest gatherings ever.
Welcome back to the Torque Motorsport Show, bringing you behind the scenes and under the hood of motorsports and video games. I'm your host, Billy, and we've got with us Gavin.
Yes.
Back on the show.
I'm back somehow. I don't know how I'm still back here, but I guess they had to bring a third person in to check on me. Would you like to introduce yourself? First time to the podcast.
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm Illy. More, just work with all the brands for GMG, and yeah, pleasure to be here.
And we got special guests dialing in from Japan. We got Dino Carbonare.
The one and only.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'll have to correct you there. It's Dale Carbonare.
Oh, jeez. Yeah,
It's okay. It's okay.
I tried to Google the pronunciation before the call, and it did not help me at all. So, what was it again?
Just imagine the pasta sauce, but it ends with an E instead of an A.
Ah.
Carbonare.
Love that.
Dale
Yeah,
Carbonare.
welcome to the call. Stoked to have you. You're
Thank you.
long-time contributing editor to Speedhunters, as well as a general
That's right.
content creator in Japan. So, yeah, well, what started it all for you? Because you've been doing this for a long time now.
Yeah, I've been doing this for about 20 years now. Where did it start? I mean, that's a hard one. I mean, to probably pinpoint it, I think it was probably all due to my dad taking me to like hill climb races when I was like 3 or 4. So I grew up partly in Italy, partly in the UK. And you can imagine, close to the mountains in Italy, there was always like hill climb races and kind of local rallies happening. And that was my first kind of taste, literally taste, because actually the thing that I remember the most was the smell
Yeah.
of, racing cars. And I think that kind of subconsciously kind of sparked everything. And then, when I moved to the UK, I started noticing how the market there had very different cars to what I was used to seeing in Italy. And as kind of years went by, I started noticing Japanese cars and being kind of surprised how different they looked and how cool they seemed to be compared to what I was, generally used to. And I started reading car magazines pretty young. So when my parents went off to do the weekly shopping, I would be like next door at the, news agents, just going through every single car magazine. And that's sort of how I kind of began learning about cars and then seeing them. And then in 93, I ended up moving to Japan because of my parents' work. And that kind of just blew it up for me because, I was reading about these legendary cars in Japan. And then all of a sudden, here I am in Japan seeing them. And yeah, it was crazy. Like, it was an awakening, really. And ever since then, I wanted to get involved with cars. So after university, I came back to Japan. I studied in the UK, and I just decided to start vlogging, well, rather blogging at the time. There was nobody really doing stuff from Japan except for like a couple of older journalists that, were established and here for so many years. There was nobody covering the actual tuner scene and the culture. Except for the odd kind of like, magazines that would fly out for events and stuff. So I started to do that. And all of a sudden I started getting hit up by a bunch of magazines in the US and in Europe. And that's where it kind of took off for me. And I've never stopped. So I went from print to web. and now I'm doing video. So yeah, progress through the whole, the media landscape.
Do you have like a preference? Do you miss like the style of copywriting and storytelling, or do you like lean more towards the video now?
I think like everything, you kind of learn to progress. You definitely miss the older days and the older ways, but the reality is people no longer want to read. So you can like writing as much as you want, but people are not going to sit down and go through 1,000 words with the same kind of vigor that they used to back in the day. So it's fun. Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's like ADD, and I totally get it. I have like extreme ADD myself, so it's the content coming at you easily, easy to kind of digest. That's what it is. So I think we're just evolving different ways of kind of getting content out there, and I think it's really exciting. And I started my YouTube channel just over 2 months ago, and I've been enjoying it so much because it's just I don't know. It's more fun almost. It's you get to kind of bring that excitement in a different way to whoever's watching. So yeah, I'm really having fun with it.
Is YouTube a venture that you've always thought that you were going to get into? You've been a journalist, you've been writing a lot, and you've been behind the scenes of a lot of other, videos and YouTubers as well. When was that transition for you? Like, I think it's time for me to do something myself.
So yeah, I've been actually, I've had my YouTube channel for like 12 years or something.
Yeah.
But it was just something to like throw, crap on there.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do it, but I always wanted to start it well. I wasn't gonna,
Of course.
I mean, the
start
first video you
rough.
did started pretty well. It was, what was it? The Nakai 930, right? The
Yeah.
RWV pulling. How did that go about? It was 12 years ago.
That's right. I was just there for a shoot for Speedhunters and a bunch of magazines, and I had a Nokia. I can't remember the actual name of the phone, but it was this bizarre phone that you had like a swivel out camera. It was pretty good for the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna make a video now, and then I made a video of him just rolling the car out, and it kind of lifts the wheel up, and it got like 1 million views.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Was that your first ever encounter with him as well? Is that how your relationship?
Oh no,
with
that
him?
was that was probably like 2008. I met Nakai in 2004 or 5, the first time. Yeah.
Wow.
Not that the guy has changed. He's been
No.
exactly the same ever since. It's one of the few people that has just kept it real
That's
throughout
phenomenal.
his insane success.
There's this really early video of you. I think it's you in the car drifting a R34 at there's like water all around you, like in the docks or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And then
yeah.
you just pull up and you got this massive smile on your face.
Yeah, that was my wife filming actually. She was my girlfriend at the time.
Oh, that's amazing.
And, yeah, I still had hair actually back then.
Do you remember that day? Do you remember? That
Yeah,
should be so
I remember it
iconic.
like yesterday. Yeah, actually, it was the time that Nissan gave me an R35 press car, and I took out the 34 and the 35 to that. It's like a wharf. Actually, I still shoot there today. Like I go there often to get photograph cars, and my wife was driving the 35. I was driving the 34, and old tires. I'm like, well, open space. Might as well do a few loops.
Oh, yeah, classic.
Probably a good segue into your affiliation with the drift scene and just how you got into it. Like, was it?
Yeah, drifting. I mean, I think I covered drifting from the very early days, even before D1 was D1. It was like the Battle magazine events that I first started covering back in the day. It was still the same guys that you hear commenting now on D1, but it was way more amateur, more grassroots, and the driving was honestly terrible at that time. And it's just crazy you guys talk about drifting, because I was at Gunsai on Sunday, and it was an amateur, semi-amateur grassroots event, and the level of driving was just incredible. Like everybody they have all these insane cars these days because they're able to not crush as much. If that makes any sense. Of course, there's a lot of beaten up practice cars, but usually those are cars that people have had for 10 plus years. There was this Toyota Platz, which is a sedan version of a Vitz, and the guy is quite well known because he dropped an SR into the car and turned it into a rear-wheel drive drift car, and he's had that thing for like 15 years and he's still driving it. I mean, just proof to how everybody just keeps improving in Japan.
Yeah.
The level is insanely high. You know, you go back to the older videos, you know, when I first started covering D1 in like, you know, mid 2000s, like even the D1 drivers weren't that incredible back then. So it's pretty cool to see.
How have you seen, like, you've witnessed a lot of the culture and the driving scene, like the professional and the, you know, unprofessional, I guess.
Enthusiast, yeah.
Yeah.
Enthusiast, yeah.
What's the biggest thing that's changed in your opinion?
I think the biggest visually and, you know, even, you know, the skills alone, but the way people set up cars, that's had a bit of an impact on how cars look. There's a big move in D1 to kind of have the cars squat really low towards the rear and have these wheels poking up at the front. I don't particularly like it, but obviously it does something for the driving side of things. I think Formula D cars are far more old school in the way that they look and you know, are set up. I don't really do D1 these days so much. I kind of lost interest in the whole championship. I tend to enjoy Formula D a bit more, especially the international kind of mix that keeps going on with getting drivers in and out of Japan. I just find it far more exciting.
Yeah, you kind of saw that with FDJ over the weekend as well. I think I saw Matt
Yeah,
Mike and a few guys there, and there's a guy from yeah, exactly.
Oh, I was just saying. So he's the son of a very famous Finnish rally driver, a bit of a legend.
Yeah, because he's a rally guy himself, right? And he just sort of came off. Like, I was just reading the comments and they're like, oh, this guy just won a rally event just the other week and just jumped in and just won an FDJ event. So it just shows the skill level, right?
Ridiculously, it's like a teenager, right? So
yeah, it's just like a kid.
driving. He was like
Yeah.
7 or something.
Oh my god.
He's been rallying in the forests of Finland since he was 7.
Oh, there you go.
just-
Yeah,
Yeah,
this kid's destinies, man.
Is he part of the Cusco team, or I saw he had like Cusco?
Yeah,
recently.
I think I'm not sure how it works, but he definitely was part of the Cusco team.
Massive
and
team,
it's just a prime example of how, you know, simulators have kind of progressed any type of motorsport really into getting younger and younger talents into the whole, you know, genre.
There was a lot of super teams. There was like I couldn't even count how many Team Cusco cars, Team Kazama. Like there was a bunch.
Yeah, Kazama has an insane lineup of cars this year. They're killing it. Not only do they look good, they perform good, and it's just like one of the coolest teams out there.
So what's to get you going these days? Like you've done, like I did a quick math count. Could be right, could be wrong. But on Speedhunters, you've done about 2,304 articles.
You count them yourself.
I know, it's insane.
Yeah, so don't take me for granted if I counted it. But since March 28, 2009, you've done 2,300 or so articles. Like, what gets you going still? Like, how do you still go to these events and still be interested and write that many articles?
I don't know. I think
And then
I'm a tad
transform to video.
autistic. I think I'm a tad autistic. I just get, I don't know, I'm into cars at that level, you know. I'm never really tired.
Yeah.
And, you know, I have a personal interest in GTRs, and that alone just keeps me going because I'm always trying to find out what guys are doing and, you know, what Australians are doing because you guys have the coolest GTR scene out there.
Yeah.
And just to see how people keep pushing, companies keep evolving products, and, you know, you keep making these older cars better and better. That alone just gets me going. And it's funny you mentioned that because I'm actually trying to bring my R34 back from slightly longer than expected storage. I sort of put it to the side when my twins were born in 2016. So it's about time to, you know, get that going again, and I'll probably get even more back into cars.
Any plans to get the twins into it when they get a bit older?
Oh man, they asked me, like they've been in the car because I've taken it to events, even though it's not road registered. I just put temporary plates, and we did Tokyo Auto Salon in 2018 with it, and they miss it as much as I do. So I plan to take them out on some nice mountain roads. I got 3 boys, so I'll do all 3.
Nice. Nice. Have you ever been down to Australia?
Yeah, I come quite. Actually, I'm coming at the end of this year for the World Time Attack event
Awesome.
in Sydney. Yeah, I've been probably 15 times now.
Yeah, nice.
So how's the difference in culture then in terms of cars when you go from country to country?
Well, I mean, obviously, the
Japan.
first thing I see in Australia is how mean the government and the authorities are against car people.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on out there?
Yeah.
I don't know why there's so much hate. I just don't
There is.
understand it. I
Yeah.
always manage to bring back a few fines with me every time I go to Australia.
Yeah. It's pretty strict, dude. We have in this state we have a 3-kilometer tolerance. So if the limit is 60 and you want to overtake, you go 64. That's 1 over, and you get a fine.
Yeah, Gav knows
Which is
all that.
unsustainable because
Which is insane. We just have cameras everywhere. You know.
Yeah, but you also have the counter arguments too. So.
But the counter argument is I mean, it's great for the state. We have one camera that raked in $2 million. You know. Like,
yeah, it's obviously a big money making.
obviously a massive money maker for us. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We got to pay this
It's
$1 billion
sad.
debt down somehow.
But I mean, aside from that, like I think you're much like the U.S., very power crazy down there,
Yeah.
which allows you to kind of build probably the craziest cars I've seen. The whole drag scene is amazing in Sydney.
yeah.
I've only been to Melbourne once, so I haven't really explored much out there. But what I did see is not too far different from Sydney. And yeah, the GTR side of things is amazing, and you guys make half the world's coolest products. You got, I don't know why there's so many ECU companies in Australia.
Yeah.
Actually, that's
Yeah, that's
good,
literally so
very
many.
good show.
Yeah.
Haltech, Motec, and whatever is out
Yeah.
there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, it's
Link
I
is
enjoy
as
it
well.
every
Yeah,
time.
they're part of Oceania.
What about New Zealand? Gav and I are originally hailing from
Yeah.
there, but have you ever been down there and checked out the D1 scene?
No, I
right
have
there?
not. I really do want to visit. There's some
You should.
shops I would.
You would
check out.
realize how much influence you guys actually have back in New Zealand. I was actually having this conversation with a coworker we have who's also from New Zealand. He was telling me he has a pre-facelift S14 blacktop. He's like, we have a lot of friends that just rock Speedhunter banners, but they don't even know what it is. And these people
It's like
claim
a
it.
mysterious name.
Yeah, and they love, and some people who do know it, they might love it so much that they end up claiming it and forming like their own little group around it because they all love
That's
speed
crazy.
hunters. Yeah, like it's actually insane the influence Speed Hunters has even all the way out to New Zealand. Through your articles and what you guys write about. They aspire to build cars similar to the ones that you guys write about in your articles.
Yeah, I mean, I think we left a really big mark because we came pretty much when print media went to
100%.
crap, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden everybody was just getting inundated by an insane amount of content from everywhere, not only Japan, and it was all there for the taking. And I remember people telling me that we were posting too much, like they couldn't keep up, like there
Yeah.
was too many stories happening one day. I mean, when we first started, I remember I used to do about 25 to 30 stories a month, just me.
Wow. It's almost like
So,
one. That's like one a
with
day.
all the other contributors, it would have
That's
been
one a
like
day, bro.
2-3 posts a day sometimes. It was insane. It really was.
That really shows your passion, especially because they're not
Yeah.
small articles. Like
Nah, they're not like.
very comprehensive and a lot of cool
Yeah.
photos too. So
Yeah, it was a lot of work. Still is.
I bet.
You've done a bunch of work with game studios too. Like you did some stuff with EA a while back.
Yeah, I worked with EA on the Need for Speed game. So, I mean, Speedhunters is linked to Need for Speed. So we've always helped the team initially to kind of get the whole accuracy of it all. Like, the cultures and just represent them, correctly and accurately in the game so that people were able to kind of, live their automotive dreams through the game and build the cars that they would want to own for real. And that's something that really made the game stand out. But I've done a bunch of stuff with other game studios like Codemasters and so many others.
Yeah, I think through the games and your YouTube channel, like living vicariously through you, have like so much cool content like street drifting or like professional events or car meets. And then, the games, there's a lot more games coming out around car modification, drifting, racing. Obviously, we're part of that. We're aspiring to be, making an impact in that scene. But because it's so cool, it's like such a, such an awesome industry and genre to make games.
I mean, Japan is insane because, I've been here and doing it so long, I probably get jaded. But like, if you just step back for a second, you realize that how much stuff is happening all the time.
Oh yeah.
Like on a weekend, I'm spoiled for choice. I could do like 5 different events, and sometimes it's overwhelming. It really is a car guy's heaven here. and
Yeah, it's almost
kinda
like the
take it for
stars
granted.
aligned for you to move there, really, when your parents had that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of against the move. Obviously, I was 16 at the time, and the last thing a 16-year-old wants to do is, being plucked from, all your friends and move across the world on the
And
other
with
side of the
another
planet.
language
So-
too.
But yeah, it's insane. Still is a different planet.
Yeah.
It feels that way.
Well, that's the
Um,
other thing
but
too. It's like you can speak Japanese, right? But how comfortable are you usually with like, I mean, because you like you communicate with so many influential people in the scene and stuff like that. Do you ever come across any like strange barriers or like just? I mean, you've been there for so long.
Initially, yeah, at the very beginning, like I mentioned, I was one of the first guys to kind of do this. So, all of a sudden they have this big foreigner show up at their shop with a camera. It's like, can I shoot this and that? And like,
Yeah.
who the hell's this guy? And it took years to get those kind of relationships built up because, in Japan, it's kind of an old school society. So it's all based around respect and, it takes years to generate trust. And, I wouldn't say I struggled, but it was definitely like something to deal with initially. And now I'm at a point that I can just rock up to any shop and hey, what's up? Can I shoot 5 minutes? And they'll be more than happy to sit down and have a chat with me as well. So it's awesome. I feel at home basically.
Yeah.
I've been told by Illy that you know everybody in Japan. So
Every single person, all 127.
must be hard to go to the supermarket, It's like-
Yeah, it's
Dino-san.
terrible.
No, that's so cool.
The Japan's plug for anything automotive related.
Yeah, we definitely need to get over more. We've done a few trips in the past few years. Like for us, it's much closer, obviously, than the US.
Yeah.
There's just so much influence there, and so much to learn, and so much to see. So
You were there just a couple months ago. How did you find it in your? That was your first time, right?
no, I've been
A couple times.
a couple of times, but it's probably, even though I don't speak the language, very, very, very limited. It's one of the places that I feel like I could live in. Like I've been to a bunch of places, but I'm like, I could live here, and like I just feel like at home, and like people are so friendly and nice. But there's also that, the other side where they want to, I wouldn't say know what you're up to, but it's like, you can't just rock up to a shop and be like, hey, I'm going to film stuff, and everyone be like chill about it. There's the respect and the need to build those relationships.
Yeah, absolutely,
alongside
yeah.
the kindness. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
Special place.
it is definitely a very cool country to live in. I think you kind of lose track of how efficient everything is while you're living here. And then when I go back to Italy, like within 3 days, I'm like, oh my God, how can people put up with this stuff? And I just want to come back. And you kind of get used to it. But yeah, there's some struggles like any country. There's positives and negatives to any side of the story. So, but overall, it's pretty awesome, or else I wouldn't be here.
Do you have, like, with your YouTube channel and your own, brand and content, do you have like aspiring goals of what you want to achieve, or you just kind of like living the life, recording and documenting?
I mean, I think what I really want to do is really turn YouTube into pretty much what I've been doing on Speedhunters, but video version, and do it constantly. I mean, there's so much stuff I could literally like post every day. So that would be the goal.
100%.
And the only reason YouTube has gone so well for me in the last 2 months is because I teamed up with a fellow Aussie. So he's helping me like, do the editing and scheduling and all that stuff. So without somebody to kind of support you and help, there's no way I could have done all of this by myself.
Well, it's
So
nice to know we've
just
been
gonna keep
helpful.
pushing. Big thanks to Australia.
Shout out. No, that's awesome. I mean, we're trying to, we take a lot of inspiration with what you're doing on YouTube and trying to build something relating to the game as well, obviously, but build something that gives an insight into, driving and motorsport culture around the world, but also in Japan. So it's, really inspiring seeing everything you're doing and living that life. It's like, it's such a, I imagine for you as a young kid, you know, looking in those magazines and then knowing what you do now, that must just be like the dream, right? You're like living your childhood dream.
Yeah, I mean, ever since I started kind of getting really seriously into cars, I always thought I'm going to try and become a journalist. And initially I started only writing, and then I had trouble, finding photographers that were up to scratch. Like, I teamed up with a few guys initially. I was just like, oh my God, I can do better myself. So that's how I kind of started pictures. It's just like picked up whatever digital camera was available at that time and started submitting pictures. So it was like a complete package for whoever was buying into my work, and that worked out. And then I just kind of stepped it up, got a little bit better with pictures, and kept doing it until it became like a full-time gig. And 20 years later, I'm still doing it.
Did you always have the design eye for like photography and composition and all of that, or was it just something that you kind of, like everything else?
I think I always had an interest in things that look good, if that makes sense. Things that fit design-wise or aesthetically, or something that's pleasing to the eye. And I think it comes from maybe my ADD, but the impulsive, creative things that you get sometimes. I think that's what fueled me. And once I picked up a camera, I just never put it down until I reached a level that I was happy with. And then I would just upgrade the equipment and do the same until I felt I got to a point. And, it was just great when the internet came around, because you started seeing what other people were creating and just being blown away by some amazing photographers. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to try and kind of, not replicate, but kind of take, a bit of that, of what they're creating, and incorporate into my work. And it's been a really cool path of experimentation and just trying to push yourself. And I think that's what makes a good artist, is when you kind of force yourself to step outside of your comfort zone and just, do something different, or force yourself to do something different. Like, I remember one day I was like, I'm going to cover this event. I think it was the Nismo Festival. Like, I must have covered it like 10 times by that point. And I'm like, I'm taking one lens, and I decided to take a tilt shift lens. And I covered the entire event, and it made it look like, it was a little model of an event. And I enjoyed it so much. And it was a bizarre kind of look, but, a lot of people kind of caught on to it. And I got good feedback on it. So it's just an evolution, right? You got to experiment, you got to play around and kind of keep a tab on what's happening around the world, what people are doing, and just progress.
I find it's one of the hardest skills. I'm not a very good teacher, so it's probably just me. But like teaching someone design, like having that design eye and like what to look for, and it feels really tricky, because you've got to put to words something that that comes more naturally through repetition.
Yeah.
Have you ever like had mentor, like what's the apprentices?
Or maybe some sort of guidance, or maybe
like a
some
mentorship.
yeah.
Well, have you done that for other people?
Yeah, in a couple of occurrences, I've had to do something like that. But like you're saying, you either get it or you don't. You can kind of try to achieve something, and you might get to a certain point, but it will end up looking a bit strange to people that are in the know. Especially, I'm talking cars only here. There's a look that, like you said, it's really hard to explain. There's like something that clicks and looks okay or looks right. And if you don't get that, because that would be the basic thing of what photography would be for cars, if you don't get it, you just can't achieve something.
It's
that
time
will
to
look
move
good
on to a new hobby.
It's
Time to photograph a new hobby. Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you ever work out how to put it into words, just shoot us an email, because that'll be interesting. Yeah, it's tricky.
So you've hosted I saw a video that you hosted like an underground Tokyo car show for like the Auto Salon. And Larry Chen was in the video. There's a bunch of other photographers in there, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is so crazy! Like running around, they can't breathe, trying to take as many photos as they can. Like, How is like is that like meets like that just something that just occurs on a weekly thing, or was that just because it was just smaller meets because there was a massive event behind it?
Yeah, so basically that's it. It was
Yeah.
actually a good friend of mine, Japanese guy that's been in the car scene forever. He's got a really cool ER34.
Yeah.
He knew, of course, that Tokyo Salon was going to be open for the first time after COVID, and literally half the world would be in Tokyo for the weekend. And he decided to kind of do a very curated type of event. So, the location was hidden. It was invitation only. And a few hours before the event was supposed to happen, he released where it would be occurring. And it turned out to be one of the coolest gatherings ever.
It was so insane. Like the Super Silhouette
Each
was
car
there.
was kind of handpicked.
I was like just in the car park, dude, like a Super Silhouette just there, chilling.
So sick. I want to go back to your childhood dream and that the kind of young Dino. What advice would you give to yourself as a kid or the aspiring automotive journalist? Because there's a lot of them these days. I think more than
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it matters if it's back then or now. I think it's just don't doubt yourself. If that's your dream, go for it. Like, why would you not do that if that's what you care about and that's what you're good at? But all throughout my path, I think I've always kind of not doubted myself, but always like asked myself, am I really doing the right thing? I should be doing this and getting like a real job or a desk job. And but looking back now, it was probably just fear, kind of like failure maybe. And so put all of that away and just do what you're good at and chase it until it works. Make it happen.
What do you think you would have done if you weren't doing what you were doing? Like if you did
Well,
give
I
up.
studied.
If you
I
did
studied
give up.
economics, so I was supposed to get into banking.
Okay,
originally.
there you go. Dino on Wall Street.
Yeah.
Wall Street Dino.
With a suit. Yeah, which is good because I hate wearing suits. So
Thank God,
which was
yeah.
a gig.
Well, they're very different. So they're like polar opposite. That's so awesome. You did some work with Pagani. Tell us
Yeah,
about that.
so back in I think it was 2016, I worked with them for 2 years. I was handling their PR marketing here in Asia, and it was so much fun. Like, it was basically trying to get the brand to be more recognized here, because only people with extreme kind of car knowledge would kind of knew about the brand, what it was all about, and they kind of wanted to get the name out there. And with it, we did some events here in Japan and also in Australia. We brought the Wyra BC to World Time Attack, and we got Keiichi Tsuchiya to drive it. So it was a pretty crazy thing we were doing, like combining the most expensive Italian hypercar with like JDM. It's just like, what? But it worked, and it was
crazy.
it was so much fun. And Pagani is a company that I respect so much. I think much what I was saying a couple of minutes ago, Mr. Pagani did exactly what I did. He just followed his passion. He wanted to make cars, and he made it happen. And not only is he an amazing artist, he's an amazing engineer, and obviously a very good businessman. And he, pretty quickly managed to put together, one of the most incredible cars ever to have graced the automotive space. So it was a fun couple of years to work alongside him.
Going off that, so like you said, how the Pagani is such a really well-performing car. Like, in your eyes, I mean, this is obviously a biased thing, but what in your eyes defines a performance car, and how do you example them from, let's say, a street car or any type of genre car? At what point do you determine something is like, oh yeah, this is a fully built something for this or that? Like, or do you just generally just see builds that are just like, what are you for?
Well, in this day and age, a Tesla can be a performance car, so it's a very broad spectrum. But
Correct.
I think what Pagani does is basically, as a car guy, you always have this image of the perfect car in your head, and it has every little part and piece is perfection in itself.
Correct.
And I think that's what Pagani is. Like down to the smallest nut and bolt made of titanium.
Yeah.
With a little Pagani logo on each bolt and nut.
Yeah.
And you know, just the bolts alone are like, you know, $100,000 for one wire. So just that level of, you know, it's almost craziness if you think about it. But obviously there's a lot of people that appreciate it and a lot of people that can afford that level of execution. And I think it's
100%.
pretty much art.
Yeah.
So I think what Pagani does really well is they combine the engineering side to art. It's basically the fusion of two worlds, and I think they create something incredibly unique. There's so many other hypercar manufacturers these days, but I think Pagani still stands out, especially for the art side.
I agree.
Yeah.
It probably relates to your personal work too, but like the concept of art in a car, like one of the amazing things about art is sharing it with other people, but that means that you have to quote unquote finish it, so that it can be released, and that's, you know, as creatives, drawing a line in the sand and saying, okay, I'm like, there's stuff I could probably tinker with or fix, but we're going to call this done so that I can move on.
Yeah.
Like, how do you have that like internal battle to get stuff out, or it seems like from afar that you've got it sorted because you've created so much stuff and it's all, you know, really amazing. So
Yeah, I think everything I've ever put out creatively has never been finished because there's always a second part to everything, right? So if I shoot a car, that car will evolve somehow at some point. So there's always a chance to kind of follow up. And it's very much the same in the cars that I have. Like my GTR will never be finished because, you know, there's always something to perfect and to get right. And it might not happen now, it might happen in a few years, but there's always something that's going to keep it evolving. And I think the creative side of things too, not only the subject that you're shooting, but your means to get that out. The cameras keep improving, lenses keep getting better. So it's always there to kind of like, and it's the same for games, right? I mean, you guys have just said that, you know, you have to kind of call it every once in a while and just get stuff out there so people can start enjoying it. And then you add to it, you perfect it, you do packages with extra cars or whatever, and people can keep enjoying it probably longer than, you know, you expected initially.
There's like this sleight of hand that we've kind of worked into the industry because, like, you know, back in the day, as game developers creating Super Mario Brothers, like once it's on the cartridge, like that's it. There's no like live updates. So there's more, it seems to me at least, more intensity in like making sure that it's like what you want. But now it's kind of like,
let's release it at 80% and call the 20% over the next 5 weeks.
Yeah, or like get feedback earlier and then adjust, you know, and update things based on, you know, player feedback. So there is like a portion moving towards not stressing so much about it being polished to the T because maybe 95% of people don't care about, you know, a little signature on a bolt. But like having the car in general is something that's really high value for somebody. So
it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? It's like there's an advantage to that, and then there's also some games that, like, I don't know if I can, like, I guess, like one of those type of games where they might have released stuff too early, but then there's a lot of bugs. But I mean, it's just finding the right balance. But I mean,
I mean, with the Cyberpunk one, it was like when they released, it was like the game was good, but then they also had like a lot of bad press with it too. And by the time they did fix it around, did they manage to retrieve all those, you know, lost clients, lost gamers, whatever? That's the issues that we have to run into, I guess.
Yeah,
it's a fine balance.
It is.
You play many games yourself?
Not anymore. Just don't have the time. I think the last game I played was Gran Turismo a few versions back. That's about it.
I want to get back to your 34. So your 34 is what you currently own in storage. Do you own any other vehicles at the moment? What have you owned in the past that people might not have known you for?
So I also have a Porsche 964. That's part of the whole Speedhunters project car lineup. And I haven't seen it in 8 months. It kind of ended up dying on me when I was doing like a shoot on it. And it should be back next month, so I can't wait to get back into that. And I have a bunch of parts waiting to be fitted.
Yeah.
And then I have what I call Project Drop Top, which is a 4 Series convertible.
Wow.
It's the only functioning car we currently have in the house. Everything else is either broken or off the road.
Wait, the current car that is running is a BMW convertible 4 Series.
Yeah, it's a 440i. So it's sitting on KW suspension, BBS wheels.
The 440i
Yokohama
is
tire.
B58 or N55?
Yeah.
B58.
Yeah, B58. So it's the same engine as a Supra, but
Yep.
I think different heads,
Yes.
different turbo setup.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, with a quick reflash, I think it does about 360 horsepower, so it's plenty
Wow.
fast.
Do you get to
for
put the top
daily
down
duty.
often in Japan?
Oh, all the time.
Really?
It's yeah, driving through Tokyo with the top down. Like, and I didn't even know about this. So my wife is the one that's crazy about convertible
Okay.
cars, and before I met her, I never actually got to drive around Tokyo with the top down, and it's like a whole different perspective. It's really cool because you see the whole
Of
top of
course,
the buildings,
yeah.
and
Of
you
course.
enjoy more the
Yeah.
lights and the atmosphere. And yeah, I really enjoy convertible cars now. So unless it's a track car,
Yeah. For
convertible's
safety
fine.
reasons, we won't get in those.
Yeah.
You're big. Maybe we convert Gavin, big BMW.
I'm a big BMW guy, but I'm not a big BMW convertible guy.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. Yeah, not yet.
Move it to
Well,
Japan.
whenever you're in Japan next, I'll take you for a ride.
Likewise.
You'll enjoy it.
Solid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We'll take you out if next time you're in Melbourne, Australia. We'll take you out on the track and we can show you how poorly we can drift.
In comparison
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
those in Japan. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need driver mod like yesterday.
Yeah. We're getting there, you know. All the tracks are so far away. It's like, can't you just
Yeah.
build one like
Mm.
down the road? I don't know.
Anamoka,
Well,
do you hear this?
I
Yeah.
keep hearing they're continuously like shutting down
Yeah.
racetracks in Australia.
hmm Yeah.
Like
They're
I
shutting
met
down.
Alexi the other day, and he was telling me they shut one down up in Queensland or something lately.
Yeah. They shut one
Which
down
is-
in Queensland. They're trying to shut down the one that's like really close to us, Sandown. They're trying to close that racetrack and just keep it as horse racing only. Which is like, I don't know what's worse, racing, horse racing. You know, like yeah,
It's pity because I think Australia has one of the coolest car scenes, and
yeah,
they're all gearheads, and people
Yeah.
like power. So it's like the safest venue to take your car out has to be a track. So why would
exactly.
Yeah.
you get rid of them?
Yeah. Unfortunately, we in Melbourne we're not very blessed with many tracks that are like nearby. I think like we have Winton's like 4 hours away, Calder's like
Yeah.
hour and a half.
Exaggeration. Yeah.
Exaggeration.
We'll call 4 hours.
We'll
Yeah,
call
yeah,
it 4 hours.
It feels like 4 hours.
4 hours on the speed limit, Billy.
Did you ever get down to the watch the burnouts at Sydney Dragway?
Eastern Creek, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I have not. No, that one of the things I really want to check out is Summer Nats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that is
See that.
wild.
And
Yeah. It's
unfortunately, it's around the same time as Tokyo Auto Salon, so it's a bit
Yeah.
tough. But yeah, I got to see the whole. I've shot burnout cars, and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just couldn't comprehend it at first when I first heard about it. I'm like,
yeah.
you guys spend that amount of money to
Yeah.
do burnouts, like
Yeah.
these insane drag type builds, and you know. And I'm
then
like, what?
the
And then
whole
I
car
saw
catches
videos,
on.
and I'm like, okay, that looks fun.
The whole car catches on fire, and then they're just kind of like,
Yeah.
woo, like they're going
Yeah.
like reel out the
Yeah.
crowd. You're like, that costs you like 180 grand, you know, in flames.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But-
That's gonna be
But
the
I
best
guess
stress.
but any one of
relief
those
ever.
guys will say it's worth it.
Yeah.
I remember-
100%.
I remember like growing up in high school and stuff, and just seeing like my mates like just destroy their cars doing burnouts and just like the cul-de-sacs
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So
I mean, I feel like Sydney though. I feel like is doing a bit better for like the motorsport events and stuff. Like
Sounds
Eastern
like it,
Creek
yeah.
is really good. Like Eastern Creek, they just did this new thing. I would love to do this. You get to put up your car against the police, and you run around the track, and you need to beat the police car, or if they catch you, then you lose. That's essentially the goal.
It's
that's
hilarious.
And they give you the full experience. Yeah, they're like the guy. There's a guy that's commentating. He goes, to the left we have teams of private drivers who think they're faster than cops. To our right we have newly trained highway patrol drivers, and they turn the lights on and everything. So like when they're behind you, you get the experience and like the
It's so bizarre. I don't
the
think I've
whole
heard of that.
the adrenaline
like a
running through your
real-life Hot
body.
Pursuit.
Yeah, and it's just in the Eastern Creek skid pan. Yeah,
That's
I need to
amazing.
see this.
it's crazy.
Wait, they're basically training people to run away from the
Yeah,
police.
yeah, literally. And the guy who won was
Sounds
a
good for
was a tuned Audi S1. It was so quick.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's crazy. They put you on wet terrain as well. There's sprinklers on the ground, so like anyone rear wheel drive was like they just lost.
Damn.
The Audi S1 and the GTR did really well. Yeah. Which I was like, this is a sport? Like they just made it a sport.
I think we just found you another article.
Yeah, man. You should
There
fly
you
down
go,
to the
yeah.
city
I'll
just
come
for
down
that.
to the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely recommend heading down to Summer Nats. It's like a different world.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the cars are insane.
It's on the list. I gotta make it one day.
Yeah. We're talking about Teslas before, and I'm curious to get your take on the EV kind of call it a revolution. I don't know, the EV takeover, and how that's picking up in Japan. Is it being embraced? Is it like
I mean, I wouldn't say it's being embraced. They're trying to. There's definitely
Yeah.
a lot of early adopters. And I've driven a few electric cars, and it's fun to see how it's all evolving. But I think manufacturers are way too optimistic with how that change can happen, like the 2030, 2050 thing. It's not going to happen that quick. I don't see countries like preparing themselves for the transition at all. Especially here in Japan. I did a road trip last year with a BMW iX. So decent range. I think it was quoted at like 500 kilometers. And even that kind of gave me that anxiety because, in Japan, you're still limited to, I think it's 50 kilowatt chargers. And you're only able to stay there 30 minutes. So you're only putting like 100, maybe 120 kilometers of range every time you stop. So it goes down pretty quick, and then you never know if the next one you're going to stop at is going to be broken or out of order, or there's cars waiting. It's just a pain to kind of deal with right now. So
Yeah,
unless
I feel
they
like the
fix that side of things, why would you ever buy an electric car?
Yeah.
Like you can get away with it
there.
in Tokyo. Like if it's your daily driver and you drive in the city and you charge at home, that's fine. And even better if you're charging with through solar panels at your house and keeping it like actually economical. It makes sense. But for the rest, I think it's just a big marketing drive that's way too kind of premature, honestly. That said, I've driven things like the Taycan Turbo S, which literally gave me a headache for being so fast. It's just I was shocked. But that's fun. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say I'm against them. I'm just saying that they're definitely something that we'll eventually have to deal with in the future, but that future is way more further up or down the line than what manufacturers are trying to get us to think.
I love the phrasing "have to deal with." It's
Well,
like,
I mean,
but it's
it's
true, though.
fun, but it
You gotta have to
gets
live
old
with it.
quick. Like the acceleration is fun, but after a while, you're like, okay, what's next? It's just like you get over it quick.
like one trick
And
pony.
they're just really heavy, and they're not really meant to be thrown around corners. I mean, some of them do it okay, but it just feels a bit artificial. This lacks soul, honestly.
It is. It's
And
an interesting.
I'm a proud father. I'm a proud father because my sons all said that they prefer noisy cars.
Yeah.
He's
They-
done his
they-
job
they
as a
want-
father. He's checked it
Well,
off the
I-
list. On to the next.
Exactly. I'm very proud because of that. So, job done.
Yeah, that's so good.
My job as a father is now completed.
Gav, you got some questions around cars you want to ask?
Yeah, man. I mean, so for you, in terms of your own cars and stuff, have you ever thought about, building your own drift car or your own rally car? You like you said yourself, you watched rally growing up. Has that ever inspired you to go like, when the disposable income comes around or whatever, I want to build a rally car and I want to compete just as a hobby, by myself on the weekend for fun, or has just cars always just been something for you to commute from and something for you to, write articles and see beautiful things out of?
No, I think I definitely want to build cars, not specifically for rally, more for drifting.
Yep.
I'm beginning to kind of experiment more with drifting. I've covered it for so many years. It's about time I started to learn how to do it properly myself.
For sure.
So I would love to build a drift car eventually when I feel I'm actually comfortable not to crash it every time I take it out.
What is the ideal
But
drift car?
along with that, Sorry.
What would be your ideal drift car?
So out of all the cars that I've drifted, I think my favorite was probably like something like a JZX 90 or 100 or 110.
Sure.
I like big, heavy cars. I like to play with the momentum more rather than the twitchy, lighter stuff. That said, I do miss driving 86s. I think they're a lot of fun too. Really hard to drift, but you know, you would have it all really if you had the space and
For sure.
the money to build it all. But I would love to do, you know, even more bizarre projects. Like I was at Okutama, which is a kind of mountain region, an hour outside of Tokyo, and they do quite big Sunday meets, on early morning Sunday meets. And I saw Mazda AZ1, the little Goldwing K car.
Yep.
So automatically I was like, man, I gotta have one car like this eventually. Something with a rotary. I remember Amemiya used to build, I think he did 2 of them, AZ1s with rotary swaps. Something stupid like that, you know, just for the fun of it. Something that's not too crazy expensive to build.
Oh, so you moved to Japan when you were 16. I'm assuming 16 was when you first saw your first K car, or did you see, were you exposed
Yeah,
to
that's
them
right.
before?
Yeah, I didn't know about, I mean, I knew Japanese cars were small, but I didn't
Not
really
that
know or
small.
understand the whole K car thing.
Yeah.
So when I got to Japan, I remember the drive from Narita Airport to where we were living. I just started seeing all these K trucks, and I was like, "Oh my God, they're so tiny!" Like, you know, and then they have to be because that's the reason K cars, you know, happen is because they had to go down the tiny roads or the rice fields. So it had to kind of like be scaled to size, and with that, but you know, I'm still discovering older K cars these days. Like at a recent Moon Eyes event, I saw this Honda N360 from like probably the late 60s. It was so tiny but so cool. Like it had a lawnmower type engine with one carburetor. It's almost like, you know, it's funny, it's hilarious what people are doing with these cars these days. So I would love to build a K Truck. Why the hell not?
Cool. Yeah, do it.
Who would get to enjoy that the most though? Like, it just like how could you even fit your twins in there? Like,
I'll put them in the
would
back.
be like you and your wife.
Just light them up in the back.
Yeah, line them up in the back.
That's so good. We got first favorite and forever. We're gonna ask.
Yes.
You gotta
Yeah.
kick it off.
So, what was your first car that you've owned? Your favorite car, and the car that if you know money was no object, you can grab it whenever you want. What would be that car?
The forever.
The
car.
forever car.
Okay, first car, that was, well, yeah, the first one I actually bought was a AX Citroen, tiny little, you know, hatch from the late 80s. So I had that while I was in university. That was fun to learn how to flick it into like lift off oversteer around roundabouts in the UK. A lot of fun with that. My favorite car is the one I own, the 34 GTR. I really love that car so much. And my dream car would be a Ferrari F40. Possibly because I haven't driven one yet. I don't, you know when you meet your legends, you're kind of disappointed.
Do you feel like that's why you've been holding it off? Because I'm sure you. Yeah.
I've had opportunity. I just can't fit in the bloody thing unless somebody puts like, you know, a custom seat and mounts it like as far back. I should be able to fit if it's done for taller people.
Yeah.
But I've been in a couple of F40s, and from the passenger side, it feels amazing.
Yeah.
Scary as hell, like ridiculous power delivery, and you're all over the place. So
I feel like it's always scary to be passenger. I'm never comfortable passenger, regardless of, you know, like.
Well, depends.
Funny you say that. I'm never a comfortable passenger with you either.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, well, that's our feeling too.
Yeah. Okay, for me it's different. Okay, I get that, but for most other people, it's just because you're like you know, I'm used to being the driver, and like if I'm not in control, I'm just like, you know, this don't feel right for me, you know. But yeah, so dude, the Ferrari F40, favorite ever car.
And how did you land on
I love everything about that car. It's the whole history behind how the project came to be. It's probably even more interesting than the car itself. It's just like Ferrari at its purest. It came out of a need
How
for
did the car come
motorsport.
about?
And
I actually don't know. You care to explain?
Well, it was basically the last Ferrari that Mr. Enzo Ferrari signed off. So that makes it special in itself. And it was a project that happened so quick. Like they built it. So it was an evolution of the 288 GTO.
Yep.
And Materazzi, the engineer that was given the challenge to put this car together, not only designed the engine, he designed the chassis and put the whole project together. And it was the last time that happened. Now everything is split up. You know, there's people who do the design, people who do the chassis, and I think because of it, it's more of a real car. It's like a passion project for Ferrari, and whatever came after that was equally amazing. But I don't think it had that, quite that level of perfection in my eyes, at least.
For sure. I mean, yeah, dude. How are you feeling?
About Ferraris? No.
Yeah, the F40. I mean, isn't that crazy, dude?
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah. I mean, we should all get one each, I think.
Oh yeah.
If
Yeah,
you're
on you,
paying,
Billy.
yeah, I'll take it.
Put on his tab.
Amazing. Dino, it's been so good to have you on the show. Love your work and everything you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
Where should we direct the hundreds of millions of people who are going to watch this episode? Where should we direct them?
Well, you can go to speedhunters.com and my YouTube channel, Dino DC.
Amazing. And we got to stay tuned for the Porsche content coming out on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, it'll be slow. I'm sure it'll break again.
So good.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean,
Thank
obviously, we're really good friends with you now, and yeah, it'll be awesome if we can even tee up some content with you down the track on our own channel as well. So
Yeah,
We need to get
absolutely.
over to
And if you come to Japan, let me know. I'll take you to the right places.
For sure.
amazing.
Lastly, you guys stopped selling merch. What happened there? You guys were killing it. No, I was around when a lot of my friends and, because I'm Gen Z, a lot of Gen Zs and my peers, we buy a lot of like Speedhunter, Super Street Magazine, all that kind of stuff. We love those things, right? We buy all the merchandise. Where's the merchandise at?
It's gone. I know.
That's gonna
I
change.
get this question all the time. It's gonna change. I'm pushing for change. Don't worry about it. It's gonna
Well,
happen.
There you go.
I'm here to help you guys
Holla
with
at
that.
your boys,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
he's trying
Yeah.
to say.
Happy to fill in that gap for you guys if needed. If you guys want to do a collaboration with Torque Motorsport for merchandise, man, we're here.
Always the plugs. Love that.
Good to know.
Thank you.
Cheers, Dino. We
Thanks,
appreciate
thanks,
it. mate.
Dino.
Have a good one.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for watching and listening to Torque Motorsport Show. Make sure to stay tuned on the YouTube channel, on Spotify, and on our Instagram for more car content, more interviews like this one, and behind the scenes of our game development. Make sure to like and subscribe and comment below for what you want to see. And we'll catch you in the next one.